During the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at genetics and how genetics helps you know your health. Hi, I'm Mark Allen, and this is an edition of Late Night Health along with Dr. Greg Celaya, who's a functional medicine specialist. And we're going to be talking about genetics and also MTHFR. That's something I've not heard of, but Dr. Greg will let us know. Welcome back to our little video blog here on Late Night Health and also on drcelaya.com. Doctor, tell us about genetics. Are they as important as we always think, or can we fight or change our genetic nature?
Hey, Mark, it's good to be here. Yeah, I look at genetics a lot when I work with patients, but you have to understand there's your genetics, which are equal to your hardware, let's say hardware of a computer.
Right.
And then you have epigenetics, which is equated to your software. So just because you have a hardware issue doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a problem unless the software is a problem as well.
Interesting. Now, epigenetics, I've done some interviews in the past on that. My understanding is that with epigenetics, you can actually change genetic disposition. For example, if you know you have heart disease in the family, there are things you can do to combat that so you don't develop coronary heart disease.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There's so many patients that come in and, for example, they have a past history, or I'm sorry, like a family history of diabetes or cardiovascular disease. And I ask them, what are you doing now to make sure you don't get it? And just about everybody's response is, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm either going to get it or I'm not going to get it. And that's not the case. You have plenty of control over what's happening, even if you have a genetic predisposition. Because remember, it's the software that runs the hardware. So you don't necessarily have to have a genetic condition if you have the proper software, right? And your software is your lifestyle, what you're doing, what you're not doing, what you're eating, what you're not eating, your toxic exposures. I mean, and the list goes on. So
those are the ways. Exercise is one of those things too that you can do. Can you, how much can you change your genetic disposition?
Well, it's quite a bit. Like I mentioned, just because your father or mother had cardiovascular disease and have a headache or a heart attack, yeah, headache, maybe so, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it.
Well, even with headaches, for example, those tend to run in families, especially with migraines.
Yeah, they do. And migraines are a little bit of a different scenario as well, but they can be controlled. And the reason I got into my profession is because of migraine headaches. And they were detrimental. I mean, I would spend 3-4 days on the bathroom floor just vomiting up bile all day long and just terrible pain and discomfort. And it's the things that you can do to make sure that you don't end up with these problems that makes a big difference in your life. That it made a big difference in my life. And not to get on a different subject, but migraines are a huge issue. Oh. And if you don't have them, you don't know. Nobody can know what you're going through until you've been there.
What about things like diabetes and heart disease? We know that even those who have had a diagnosis, they can change their lifestyle. But is that actually changing their genetic disposition?
Well, of course, you're not realizing these things. So in other words, you may have a genetic disposition, meaning a roadmap to possibly have those diseases, but it's not necessarily expressing if you have the correct epigenetics. So you have a preponderance to have that disease, but it's what you do that makes it whether your disease is realized or not.
What about breast cancer? Breast cancer is becoming more and more prevalent in Western civilization, Europe, America, and and there are celebrities who have actually had mastectomies because they have a certain gene. My understanding is even if they have that gene, they don't necessarily will come down with breast cancer, even though they could have a 50, 60% chance or more of doing that.
Yeah, I see people making that decision all the time. And that's something everybody has to make up for themselves. Is your lifestyle clean? Are you exposed to toxins? What's going on? Are you scared for your life? And sometimes just the stress of having the BRCA gene is an issue enough to make you do things like this to make sure you stay alive. So I'm not going to fault anybody for that, but they don't necessarily have to realize that disease.
And they may not manifest it, if you will.
No, they may not. And you have to weigh your risks. And if your risks are high, well, then you know what your options are. If you can lower your risks, you may not have to go down that path. But, here again, like I mentioned with migraines, you don't know what somebody's going through unless you're sitting in their shoes.
Right, exactly. You gave me some initials to talk about. MTHFR.
MTHFR.
FR, yes. What is that?
Here's the big name. It's methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase.
Of course it is.
And it's an enzyme that makes it so your body can change folic acid into methylfolate, or something we call B9. And it's a problem because so many foods are fortified with folic acid. And folic acid is synthetic. It's a man-made substance. And we've fortified foods with it because the folate portion of it is so important to everything you can even imagine with your body. But the problem is that we fortify it with folic acid because it's easy and it's simple. It's got a great shelf life. The problem is that a certain amount of the population doesn't have this enzyme to be able to convert folic acid to methylfolate. And so we end up with toxicity issues or a reduction in what we call methylation, which can create a whole host of different issues. And the way we see this is by doing genetic testing.
I see. So some people should take it and some people shouldn't? Or are there other ways of getting that part of the folic acid, the good part?
Yeah, there's plenty of ways of getting the folate, so to speak, but you have to minimize your intake of folic acid. And most people never know they have the problem until they do genetic testing. They can come up with every symptom you can imagine because this can be toxic, and so we see so many issues that are responsible for a lack of methylation. I mean, it's important for your methylation for your immune cells, your detoxification, your antiviral, antibacterial. It helps with neurotransmitters, cell growth, inflammation, hormones. It reduces estrogen, testosterone, heart attack, stroke. I mean, the list goes on, and we see these issues and people have no idea they even have them.
And at the same time, folic acid is used as a prenatal vitamin.
Exactly. And they've used it for many years because it helps reduce certain birth defects. But there's far better forms of it that aren't toxic.
Interesting. How prevalent is toxicity from folic acid?
Well, it depends if you have, the different genes in place. But if you're just dealing with one gene, your ability to deal with methylation can be reduced 30% all the way to 50%. If you're dealing with two genes, it could go all the way up to 90%. So it can become a real big problem depending upon what type of gene status that you have.
So if you have, let me understand this and wrap my arms around it. You need the folate, but the way you handle it is a genetic expression of your DNA.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily need folic acid though.
Right. It's a folate.
Folate. And you're going to get this in a lot of leafy greens. The problem is that refined foods tend to have a lot of folic acid in them. And therefore, you can create some real serious issues, not only with the lack of methylation, but the toxicity built up as well.
Fascinating. Interesting. So people should eat things like kale, spinach, things of this nature.
Right. And methylation needs a lot of different things to happen. And methylation is nothing more than adding a carbon and 3 hydrogens to a molecular reaction. And it's important to make sure to pass that methylation on from molecular reaction to reaction, and it keeps your system working. But you need so many different things to make methylation happen. You need magnesium and selenium and zinc, and the B vitamins are extremely important. Minerals and gut health is real important as well. And here again, the list goes on and on. So it's extremely important. And I see so many patients from different websites that I write for talking about MTHFR. And there is a problem with it, though, Mark. One of the problems that I see is that so many people are thinking that this is the end-all, be-all to all their physical problems. And they want the magic pill, and they want to be able to take a methylfolate or a different type of B vitamins to fix this problem. And it's not always the case. Here again, it's genetics and epigenetics. And to work with epigenetics, you really have to start with the beginning. And most people, by the time they come to me with this condition, they don't start at the beginning, and they want the magic answer. And there is no magic answer. You have to start from square one and work the system and work the epigenetics to be able to understand what's going to happen with your genetic profile.
Interesting. Well, Dr. Celaya, thank you for joining us here on Late Night Health. We appreciate it. If you want information on this, you can always check out Dr. Celaya, DrCelaya.com, drcelaya.com. Dr. Celaya is a functional medicine specialist, and he'll be able to answer questions for you if you go to that website. You also see our pretty picture there and the video here too. You can also go to latenighthealth.com, latenighthealth.com. Doctor, any closing remarks?
No, Mark, I appreciate being on. If you have methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase issues or MTHFR, go to my website and take a look around. There's different articles there, or you can get a free consultation or even become a new patient. So thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm Mark Allen. We'll see you next time here on Late Night Health.